So the analysis, of course, continues here at the National Results Centre. The 2024 elections fast approaching and expected, of course, to be the most competitive since the dawn of democracy about 30 years ago. Today is also the last day of special voting, with the main voting day, if you like, for all South Africans in the main taking place tomorrow. Let's continue making sense of this moment. Political analyst Dr Fikile Vilakazi is our guest, who joins us now at our world-class studio here at The Rock, as is commonly known. Doc, it's lovely to see you. Thanks very much indeed for popping in.
Good morning to you and to viewers at home. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Indeed, and I'm told it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, you know, you and I will probably have a whole lot more of these discussions as we continue making sense of this historic moment, no matter how you dice it. But yesterday, we already started to see a kind of moments that the IEC called hiccups, especially in places like the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. And those have always been areas of concern, given even just our history in this election process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we had anticipated, you know, given the fragility in those provinces, just around possibilities of protests, you know, dissatisfaction among citizens, whether related or not related to elections. Like we see Mthatha, for instance, the claims are that that was not related to elections, but citizens always utilize these moments to express, you know, and I think it could be one of those moments. And I think some of the hiccups we saw in communities like Soweto, for instance, where some grandmothers could not necessarily vote because officials did not turn up. And I think we're going to continue to see that kind of a thing happening, possibly even for tomorrow, in that there's a lot of movement, you know, whether it is because of work commitments or people just looking for jobs or just loss of homes. You know, there's a lot of movement happening that may in the end result in the people that are registered not being able to vote. And I think these past 2 days in the special votes are beginning to show us that that pattern is likely to happen. It may compromise numbers. So those are some of the hiccups. KwaZulu-Natal, not surprising. We are expecting a lot, in fact, in terms of predictions, particularly around violence, around just squabbles, you know, because of the rise of Umkhonto weSizwe party, but because of the political dynamics that we have been reading throughout, literally since the July unrest. So the fact that there's beefing up of security is something that is anticipated, and we're hoping that at least tomorrow will be peaceful.
Absolutely. You speak about the impact on the numbers. Yesterday, the IEC telling us that by 2 p.m., 200,000 people had cast their ballots as part of the special votes. Look, I'm loath to make a big deal out of that. I mean, it was only halfway through the first day. However, it's still a very small number compared to the 1.6 million people who had applied for those special votes.
It is, but encouraging at the same time, given the fact that it is a special vote and it's first day. So that enthusiasm, you know, to say I'm going to wake up and go and vote. And I was hearing also just from where I am around, what is saying, before I go and do my work, I really want to go cast that vote. Yeah. So that enthusiasm alone is a positive sign. And we're hoping that it will spill over into tomorrow, you know, because tomorrow then we're looking at bigger numbers. But I think it was a fairly good start, comparatively, given the glitches that we've experienced as well.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And as we kind of, you know, watch the numbers and, you know, the leaderboard behind us continues to change, we're going to have to also at some stage get to a qualitative analysis of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to speak about specifically issues to do with gender parity. I'm always so fascinated.
Yeah.
This year, once again, we are told that the majority of people who are registered to vote are women, and yet they have to contend with options that have largely male leaders. And each time parties make an undertaking to improve their gender parity. But I wonder if, you know, any of those appeals from specifically gender activists are landing.
You know, it is deeply troubling. It is deeply troubling. I mean, I was looking at the ballot, and again, you are just seeing male faces, you know, in basically throughout the 3 ballots. Very, very few women presidents in the political parties. You know, the exception being Sarah, which is a new baby in this, you know, on the court.
And the Good Party, by the way.
And good party has been, of course, Patricia de Lille. But other than that, I think we're also seeing the emerging parties. One would anticipate that parties like Rise Mzansi, for instance, the newly formed, would read the times and say perhaps we could be the ones that are giving South Africa a feminist president or a woman president. And again, they're bringing up candidates that are male, and that tells us a lot about the disappointingly patriarchal, way of life that just we're still caught up in as a nation generally, but within our political systems as well. And that constantly then, it's always going to take a woman's body to be able to advocate for those issues, which is disappointing for a country like South Africa, where the expectation is that our democratic experience, particularly in terms of law and legislation and policy, would probably have shifted us into a different direction. But unfortunately, in practice, we are still a highly conservative society, and this is what is showing us.
Right.
So we are far from getting a female president by the look of things.
And what I find interesting, because of course I've had this conversation even with Colleen Makubele, who heads up SARA, who herself has admitted that in many instances, it's women who are voting for men into these positions.
Mama Mandela said that,
yeah.
But we'll talk about it more sometime.
Indeed. Well, you're not going anywhere just yet. I mean, we're going to have a lot of time to ventilate these issues.